New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, my friends. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for Spiritual Toolkit. I am Brack Ford, and I am your host. Joining me on the team is producer Peter Millard, and a shout out to our network founder, Robert Brzezinski. The idea for this show came about from my sincere desire to be of support to and a voice for the disenfranchised, the struggling, and hurting people within my reach. Spiritual Toolkit offers spiritual and ethical practices that support others in transforming their lives, relationships, and careers. And it's my hope that we can encourage others on their path to their passion, their dreams, and their best life, helping to build a bridge of understanding, healing, and thriving for all. So we will have guests from all walks of life talking about real life experiences and navigating its twists and turns and living triumphantly. So today, my guest is Dr. Janine Burns, an Interfaith Chaplain and a certified Havening practitioner, as well as one of my very dear friends that I love very much. And so as a teacher of practical spirituality, Dr. Janine is passionate about helping people to uncover and express their divine nature to live a more rewarding, joyful, prosperous, productive, and peaceful life experience. A native Long Islander, she is the founder and director of the Guiding Light Foundation, which offers celebration of life memorials and funeral services for those who call themselves spiritual rather than religious. Dr. Janine is trained in transformational breath, EFT, NYS mediator, and a death doula. She states that combining affirmative prayer with self-havening, which we're going to get into, y'all, and ask her what that's about. She says that self-havening is a powerful tool for transformation. In Dr. Janine's spare time, she enjoys power boating, y'all, on the North Shore of Long Island, and is certified with America's Boating Club to teach the basic ABC boat safety course. She is also a certified vessel safety examiner. And so with that said, and all of those accomplishments, let's welcome my dear friend, Dr. Janine Burns, to Spiritual Toolkit. Yay! Hi, Janine.
Hi, Brock. Good to see you.
Good to see you also. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show and allowing my guests to get to know you. My viewers, rather. Thank you. So, you ready to get going?
I sure am. What you got for me?
Well, I got a lot. So, my show is called Spiritual Toolkit, right?
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is start off by asking, what's one of your spiritual tools and practices that you pull out in times of challenges for yourself?
The one that I use the most when I'm experiencing challenge is singing jingles, singing spiritual jingles, which I write. And it's important when your mind is experiencing what we perceive to be negative, that you keep your thinking right, that you keep yourself tuned into the amazing energy and presence within so that you can be divinely guided. And so what I've done in the past is write jingles depending on what circumstance that I'm experiencing. And if there's challenge, I love that Emma Curtis Hopkins affirmation, where she said, this too is good, this too is God, this too is for me, and I demand to see the blessing in it. So when there's challenge, literally demand to see the blessing. So I turned that into a jingle, and I'll
Can you do it for us?
Yeah, it goes like this. This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me. I demand to see the blessing. I demand to see the blessing. And so when I start thinking the negative, or my mind gets a little monkey mind crazy, I will sing that over and over to redirect my thinking, and bring me back on center. And it works beautifully, because all of life is in rhythm and motion. So when you're singing a jingle, you're really in the flow of life and really able to shift your thinking in the moment.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I know that in the past, when I've been sort of anxious or something panicky or something of that nature, I would go out and start singing a prayer or singing my gratitude. And I never thought about that being a jingle, but hallelujah, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, it plays over and over in your brain, it's great.
And it changes, I guess it changes our perception of things at that moment, and we can move forward in a positive way.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. So tell us a little bit about how your spiritual path began.
Oh my goodness. Well, when I was a little girl, which was a long time ago, I loved going to church. I mean, I can remember being, 3 years old and just being in awe of going to the church. It was just so wonderful. It was right down the corner, and my family didn't go, but they didn't mind that I went. So I went all the time. I was involved in Sunday school and all sorts of programs in the church. And I actually wanted to be a minister, even from a very, very young girl, from like 5 years old. That's all I wanted to do. But the challenge was, back then, women weren't ministers. Women weren't accepted in the diocese until like the mid 80s. And this was more in the 60s. And so they told me that I could be a missionary, or I could marry a minister. And that was back in the day when women were starting to have real freedoms and rights. And they told me I could marry a minister, but I couldn't. It really upset me. And I actually gave up the dream for many, many years. But then what happened in my spiritual path, the Vietnam War was going on, and it was so disturbing. You'd see pictures, and I remember I would always talk to God and say, God, what is going on? This is just absolutely crazy with war. And that's not what I was taught. I was taught about peace and love, and, not man's inhumanity to man with fighting and war and all that. And I just didn't. I was like, oh, God, I don't want to live like this. So I was working as a sales rep in New Jersey. I was always into eyeglasses, and I was selling eyeglasses. And I went into a bookstore. And as I walked in the book, there was a book that fell off the shelf in the back of the bookstore, and it was called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And me being a good girl, decided I was going to put the book back on the shelf. And when I picked it up, I was thinking, wow, I didn't know I had power in my subconscious mind. How cool is this? So I bought the book, which actually was really good, because the next day I'd gone for a voice lesson. I had always loved to sing. And at the voice lesson, I took a deep breath and doubled over in pain. I mean, I was just in so much pain. So I had been feeling kind of lousy, but, I'd gone to college, and I had taken, courses in psychology, and had learned that, your thinking can make you feel crazy and stuff. So I figured my thinking was off. And what ended up happening is I was really sick. I went to the doctor. He couldn't even examine me. That's how bad I was. And he said, here, young lady, I'm going to give you these antibiotics. You come back in a week, and we will I promise you a therapy that's going to get you better. So I went back home, took the antibiotics, and couldn't do anything. So I read the book, because I was in so much pain. I can't even begin to tell you. I was doubled over in pain in my abdominal area. And so the book said that there was an infinite intelligence within you, and you could contact this power, and it would heal you. So I read the book and adopted this affirmation that was, I'm open and receptive to the healing power of the infinite intelligence within me. Every cell, every muscle, every tissue and bone is renewed, renourished, revitalized. I am healed. I am healthy. I am vital and strong in my mind, my body, and my spirit. And I must have said it thousands of times because I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't eat. It was just horrible. So a week later, I go back to see the doctor, and I was better. And he couldn't believe it. And he said to me, you know, if I hadn't examined you and these notes were not in my handwriting, I wouldn't have believed this, because it's amazing. You're healed. You're fine. And I said, well, yeah, I've been doing this new mental technique. And he asked me to explain it. I tried to explain it. And he said to me, well, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, keep on doing it, because it's terrific. It's just wonderful. And then subsequent to that, I'd always loved going to church. And so did my girlfriend down the block. And she was in California, and she discovered a New Thought church, or actually it was a religious science church. And there was one on Long Island, a few towns away. So she gave me the address, and I said, well, I'm going to go check it out. I went in the back door of the church, and when I opened it, it was their library. And the first things that my eyes saw was the book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And so I knew enough then about divine synchronicity that I was in the right place. And I started taking classes, etc. And it obviously changed my life.
So that's how you got into New Thought.
That's how I originally got into New Thought. And I started taking classes. And my dad had always taught me, you know, if you're going to show up, you show up. So I always, you know, signed in attendance. I did all my homework. I paid all my fees. And I became a practitioner after 4 years of study. And a practitioner is someone who you go to when you're experiencing a challenge or some kind of big issue in your life, and you're not thinking clearly. You get somebody to pray for you. And we're literally trained in what to pray for. So if they're, you know, if you have something wrong with your feet represent moving forward. So you'd pray with the person to move forward and open up those possibilities. Or a cold represents confusion, and you'd treat for them and pray for them to have, you know, ease in their mind and clarity and focus. And it was really terrific. And what you had to do back that time, you had to have 5 people with whom you would do affirmative prayer work, and they had to sign an affidavit stating what the issue was and what the treatment was. It was literally spiritual mind treatment. We treated their mind to a new spiritual thought and through affirmative prayer. And after that, it was 5 affidavits. I was on my way. And that began a journey. Then after that, I studied forgiveness. And if you ever get to study forgiveness is just beyond cool, because when you learn to forgive is when you truly can have peace of mind. When you stop demanding that the circumstance or event or person that you were involved with was different or had changed, was just different from the way it was. And as soon as you give that up and understand it's not letting someone off the hook, it's not being walked over. What it is it's giving your own peace of mind. That changed everything for me. And that's when I decided to take ministerial training.
I'm so glad that you spoke up about forgiveness. Forgiveness is probably my biggest spiritual tool that I use. But I remember that I carried around a big, huge bag on my back for like 38 years, being not forgiving my family back in Tennessee. And when I went to Emerson, it was Angelo that said, Brock, you got to forgive them. You got to forgive everyone. And he says, get a piece of paper, write it down. Everyone you can think of that you hurt or that hurt you. And he said, you've got to forgive them. And so I started the practice, and it was hard at first, Janine. And it was like, I don't know that I want to forgive that person. And then I realized that I had to so that I could move forward. So when I finally did do that forgiveness, and I called people in Hawaii, all over the country that I could find to say, I'm sorry. And it lifted me into a new state of being, to be honest.
Well,
so thank you for that. Bringing that up.
Willingness is a huge component into forgiveness. You have to be willing to forgive. And the ego doesn't want to forgive. The ego wants to play it over and over in the mind, thinking, well, I should have said this. I could have done this. I would have done that, and blah, blah. And I love that you mentioned Emerson. Emerson is a Emerson Theological Institute is where New Thought principles are taught. And Dr. Angelo Pizzillo is the former dean. I speak to him regularly. And I love that he encouraged you and was aware that that was a critical component to shifting, is learning how to forgive, releasing the demand that a circumstance or person would have been different than they were.
Could you, I just had this thought. Some people may not know that's watching or watching it later, what a treatment is. So can you explain a little bit about how a practitioner's different from, let's say, a prayer chaplain, and what a treatment truly is?
Well, a practitioner is someone who is certified. I know out here on Long Island, out in the Hamptons, they have prayer chaplains, and they're very similar in duty. So I don't know specifically the answer to that question, but I certainly know what a practitioner is, and that's someone who's licensed in the art of prayer. And spiritual mind treatment is a specific technique that is taught by the science of mind, by the philosophy of science of mind and Dr. Ernest Holmes. And that's actually particularly why I personally went in that direction, studying the philosophy of science of mind, because they had this great tool, and it's very simple. There's 5 steps to affirmative prayer. You recognize that there's an amazing energy, presence, and power. That's the first step. Next is you unify, declaring that this power expresses through you and as you. And the next step is called realize, and that's when you state, what are you praying for? Today, I open my mind to new possibilities. Today, I am divinely guided, and I trust the process of life. I affirm I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. And then the next step is Thanksgiving. So I have an attitude of gratitude, trusting and knowing that I move forward with freedom and ease, with all the ideas necessary for me to experience joy, peace, ease, and prosperity. And then the last step is the best step in my mind, because it's release. You just let it go. I release this, and I trust that the creator of all that is, that can do anything, is taking care of this circumstance. So with that 5-step technique of affirmative prayer, that really is life-changing when you know that skill and use it on a daily basis. It's terrific.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that affirmative prayer, I learned it back when I was about 14 years old, when my mom first got into Unity. And so it changed me as a child. And I used to get bullied at school and on the bus going to school. And so I remember every day walking after I learned about that, I would do self-affirmations in my head as I'm walking towards the bus stop, knowing it's going to be a good day and I'm not going to get beat up. Everything's going to be
good for you.
So thank you for
I
sharing
love
that. A lot of people didn't know what treatment is, actually. So
yeah, a lot of people don't know what it is, because when they think treatment, they think some kind of medical intervention. What we're really literally doing is treating our thought, treating our consciousness, treating our awareness.
Exactly. Thank you for that. So, and I did say something about Emerson. I brought up Angelo and everything. I know that you were a part of that. Did you want to say anything about Emerson and your experience
Emerson
with
is
them?
wonderful. Yeah, Emerson. I'm the liaison for Emerson, and so I like reaching out to people and encouraging them and supporting them. But there's a great team now. Now it is the Reverend Dr. John Carn is now the dean of Emerson, and she's retired. And he is committed to excellence. He's dedicated. Also on staff is Dr. Melissa Higginbotham. And I think I said that correctly. And Dr. Sandy Higginbotham and Dr. Sandy West. And so there's a whole curriculum, just depending on what credential that you want to get. You can become a practitioner. There's a master's of religious studies, bachelor's of religious studies, doctorate of spiritual studies. There's a prayer chaplain. And there's a pet chaplain, which I think is spectacular, because people's pets are their family. And a lot of time that's not acknowledged. I spend a lot of energy now. I just took a graduate level course on grief support, and animals are literally part of your family. And when an animal dies, we don't really acknowledge that there's grief, because it's an unacknowledged loss. When someone dies, that's an obvious loss, but it's typically an unacknowledged loss, unless there's somebody else who has a pet. Then they have great empathy for you. So I'm kind of excited about that aspect of Emerson, that we have a pet chaplaincy program, and anybody can take courses. It's emersoninstitute.edu, emersoninstitute.edu. Anybody can take courses, and from basics to advanced, and they connect you up with one of the teachers, and they're really dedicated in supporting you in your spiritual growth and development, uncovering and expressing the divinity within, empowering you to change your thinking so that your life changes. They do great work. It's very exciting.
True.
And
It's
for
true.
30 years, I guess it was a long time. Wait, no, 25 years, I think it was, that I was the MC at the graduation for Emerson. Then I retired this year, and John stepped forward, and Angie also retired. And it's time for other people to move into those positions. And it's going extremely well. I'm very pleased about that.
I believe you were the MC when I graduated from Emerson.
I
If I'm not
started
mistaken.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it started in 97 that I did it.
Well, I graduated in, I think it was 21.
Yeah,
if
you
I'm
were.
not
I was
mistaken.
definitely the. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you were there. I remember. You told me to go put a jacket on. I remember. Do you remember that?
You're always showing up looking spiffy in a jacket. I didn't recognize you without your jacket. Where's your jacket, Brock? Where's your jacket?
Okay. No. So let's, I want to talk about your ministry coming up, but I wanted to ask you, since we were talking about your family life and growing up, who's been the biggest influence in your life?
Oh gosh, my Aunt Dorothy was a very big influence. I had a lot of quote unquote traumas as a teenager. And one of them particularly was in the church. Back that time, women really didn't have any position of authority. And I was told that I had won president of the youth league, but they changed the votes because they didn't want a female doing it. And that I was devastated. I mean, I was devastated that the church could be so dishonest and all. And it knocked me down really bad, actually, very bad. And I told my Aunt Dorothy, and she was very big in the church. She went toe to toe with the minister, almost got kicked out of the church. But the biggest influence that she had on me is when she made the distinction that God was a God of love and the same God as always. And it was the people in the church who made the poor decision and choices to cheat and be dishonest. It had nothing to do with God. It had to do with the individual choices that the people made that were, out of integrity. That saved my butt. It really did. It saved me in a big way, because that was devastating to me, that something that had been a critical part of my life since a very little girl could be so dishonest. And so that my Aunt Dorothy was a very big influence on me when she told me
Well,
that.
how wonderful that she made that distinction for you,
Great
so that you could go on and continue to seek that out.
It really was. You have no idea, because I was pretty freaked out about it. I didn't want to live anymore, to tell you the truth. I was like, if this is how life is, I don't want to be here. And that distinction was just terrific.
Is she still alive?
Oh, goodness, no. No, she passed in the 90s, 96, I think, or 7.
I was going to say, well, go tell her thank you that she did that, so that you didn't commit suicide. And now you're blessing the world, and you certainly blessed me. So thank you for being here in this world.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was, when you're that low and you're that much at the bottom and there's not any hope left, it's always wonderful. It just takes one person. That's all it takes, is one person to believe in you and give you hope.
I've had that one person before. I understand that. So let's talk about your ministry. Let's get into your ministry. Tell us what your ministry exists of and what you do.
Well, what I do right now, the direction of my ministry is celebration of life, memorials, and funerals, and focusing on people who are grieving. I teach havening, which is an amazing neurosensory technique that changes the chemistry of the brain and can help bring you peace when you're in the throes of grief. And I focus a lot of energy on that, on the havening techniques. On Facebook, I am on Facebook, and I do Monday Mindful Moments, and I teach the havening on Mondays, combining it with breathing techniques and spiritual affirmations to help people get focused. And it's going pretty well. I was kind of surprised, around town. I went recently up to the hardware store, and a couple of the guys said, "Oh, we like your havening. It really works. It's really cool.
Well, I can say that I called you. I don't know exactly, but I think it was nighttime about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and told you about me going to the doctor and having some diabetes things going on, and I was sort of panicked. And you walked me through a havening session, and you really
Yeah,
helped me calm down. And I've been doing that. Would you be willing to give us an example of havening?
sure. Oh, havening is. So let me tell you a little bit more about it, and then I'll give you an
Yeah,
example. So,
thank
so
you.
we literally hold in our hands the ability to do self-healing and to create for ourselves emotional well-being and peak performance. Now, havening techniques are innovative neurosensory techniques that can be remarkably effective in changing the chemistry of the brain and creating new neural circuitry. So you can elevate your mental state and live from the realm of feeling peaceful, calm, and safe. But it's also incredibly effective in reducing stress, feelings of emotional pain. And what's really amazing about havening is it brings relief from PTSD.
Hmm.
And so when we spoke a few weeks ago and you had learned that you had diabetes, that's traumatic to all of a sudden learn this. And your life changes. You have to eat differently. You may have to be taking medications. You have to watch your blood sugar. And so what we did is some havening techniques. And there's 3 ways to haven, and there's 7 techniques. There's actually more than 3 ways. There's actually basically 4 or 5 ways. So I'd like to show you. So what you do is you activate some corpuscles in your hands, and it sends a signal to the brain. This is one way to haven, and that is to rub your palms together gently. That's one wonderful way to do it. Another is to give yourself a gentle hug. Put your hand on your shoulders and show downward only. And in this movement and motion, what you're doing is, again, activating this chemical chain reactions, the calcium chemical chain reaction in the brain that affects the amygdala. It creates serotonin, oxytocin. These are great hormones. The serotonin is the hormone that relaxes you. Oxytocin is a connective hormone. And it also creates delta waves, which are the brain waves when you're deep asleep. Another way to haven, and this, I just love this one. Everybody has a favorite. This is my favorite, is stroking across the forehead.
I like the shoulders. That
The
made me feel
shoulders.
really,
Yeah.
made me
Across
feel
your
safe.
face.
Hmm.
Yeah. This is another one right across your face. And a lot of people, like, I know when I'm in public, I'll just rub my palms because nobody, if you notice, a lot of people do it. A lot of people go like this naturally, intuitively.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'll tell you, Brock, when I learned havening, that was a key component and a missing piece for me in terms of practical spirituality. Because, we know that physically you have to eat right and exercise. We know that spiritually we have to honor our spirit and pray and meditate. And mentally we read spiritual materials and, spiritual conversations. But what about emotionally? So many people get stuck. They get stuck in, we mentioned before, non-forgiveness. They get stuck in the past, and their lives are manipulated by erroneous negative thoughts in the subconscious mind. And what's so cool about havening, the effects are cumulative. So the more you do it, the more you alter your brain chemistry, the more you alter your neural pathways, and you can really experience ease. And one of my favorite affirmations by one of the founders, the Rudins, Ronald Rudin of Havening, is, I am peaceful, safe, and calm. Now they say I feel peaceful, safe, and calm. I feel peaceful, safe, and calm. Another way to haven, stroke your third eye. Stroke your third eye. I feel peaceful, safe, and calm. I feel peaceful, safe, and calm. It's a nice technique. And then one technique that we've used is called event havening. When you think of a specific event that happened in the past, that when you think of it now, there's an emotional trigger. You feel triggered.
Hmm.
What you do with it is you can take the emotional pain out of the event. You can remember the event. You can remember the heart. Like I when I was 10 years old, I got coal in my stocking, and it devastated me. I was 50 years old, and my brother would bring it up, and I'd still get tears in my eyes from when I got coal in my stocking as a little. I was a bad girl, and I didn't get any Christmas presents. It was horrible. And my brothers opened his gleefully. I had to sit there and watch him. It was awful.
Of course.
And it plagued me for years. And when I did havening, I did what's called an event havening, and you distract the working memory so that you distract the operational memory or working memory. And while you're doing the havening, and so there's a specific technique you haven, and what I do is I'll ask the client maybe to talk about one of their hobbies or something and tell me about it in detail. And what you do is you rate the issue. And when you think about the issue on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is most distressed when you think about it, and 0 is none. And using the havening technique of event havening and distraction, what I typically can do is get someone from a 10 in stress, which is uber stress, down to a 6 in one shot. 10 to a 6, boom. And then from there, you can get them down and lower using the different kinds of havening. There's role play havening. There is transpirational havening. There is informational havening, affirmational havening. So there's these wonderful various techniques that you can use to really create some deep and profound changes. And if you want, we could do a little something now. Let's see.
I would like that. I wanted to ask you a question also. Is this something that you can do for people through Zoom also, if someone wanted to have a conference with you on that?
So back before the Great Shutdown, what happened, which of course was the pandemic, I call it the Great Shutdown because everything shut down. Prior to that, the practitioner, and I'm certified practitioner, would stand next to the client and ask, can I touch your face, Brock? And then determine which pressure you like. Can I touch your arms? And I would haven you during the process. But since the shutdown, everybody started doing it on Zoom, especially in England and Europe. And it was self-havening. And you would do this to yourself. And that's what I love, self-havening, so that you can heal yourself emotionally, because that's where much of our pain comes from. People say, oh, I'm so depressed. I'm really depressed. And I often wonder, after I've questioned them, are they depressed or are they grieving? And I think many people are grieving. And we're grieving from the pandemic, great change. There was so much loss of our way of life, not just the loss of the life of someone that you love, just not the passing or the transition, as I like to call it, of someone whom you love, but jobs changed. You weren't going out socializing. You typically were. You were fearful of getting sick and on and on. And to have this skill to combine with spirituality, havening and spirituality, is just phenomenal. Phenomenal. So on Facebook, I typically do spiritual affirmations with the havening, and it's wonderful.
I think they go hand in hand, actually.
They do go hand in hand. And I know you need to take a break, but if you want,
we do.
I know you'd have to take some somewhere. And
when
you do, what we could do is do some informational havening. That's a wonderful technique. I can show you how to do that.
Okay. Peter, why don't we're going to take about a 2 to 3 minute break. They show some commercials and things like that, and some information about New Thought Media Network. So, Peter, if you'll take us out to a break, everyone stay with us. Go take a comfort break and come back in about 2 to 3 minutes so that we can finish up and won't miss anything of what the wonderful Dr. Janine Burns has to offer us. So, Peter, if you'll take us out, we'll take about a 3 minute break, everyone.
New Thought Radio, music from all your favorite New Thought artists. From Jamie Lula, Karen Drucker, Gary Lynn Floyd, Ricky Byers, Daniel Nahmod, Eddie Watkins Jr., and many, many more. 24/7 New Thought Radio. Positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
And we're back with Spiritual Toolkit. I'm Brock Ford, your host, and also our guest is Dr. Janine Burns. Thank you. All right, so before we went for the break, you were going to show us something. So you ready? Do some informational. Is that what you called it?
Informational. What if? What if? So you begin by noticing how you feel right now. Notice how you feel. Just check in for a second. You might want to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. 10, you feel fabulous. Down at 0, you're exhausted, feeling awful. Maybe you're 5, 6, 7, but let's begin to haven. So follow along with me. You can do any way you like. Now, you have to make sure that when you stroke from the shoulders down, that you have a thin shirt on. If you have too much clothes, it's not going to activate the corpuscles necessary to cause that chemical train reaction in the brain.
May I say something right here?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when I do the hands on the shoulders, I tingle all over. It's like I just feel energy or something just running through my body when I do that. And doing this, I feel great when I do this, but it's the shoulders that truly does something to me.
You like the shoulders, yeah. Different people like different ways. As I mentioned before, I like the forehead. There's something very soothing to me about the forehead. And then I have a friend who he told me he goes back on his forehead, on his head like that. So that's another way. So keep havening, Brock, because I want you to have this experience along with me of feeling relaxed and centered. So my affirmation this month I'm working with is I live in a state of perpetual gratitude. I live in a state of perpetual gratitude. And just to say that over and over while you're heaving.
I live in a perpetual state of gratitude. I love that. Thank you.
Live in a state of perpetual gratitude. I appreciate the blessings in life. I made it into a jingle. I like it so much. So I live in a state of perpetual gratitude is such a wonderful thing to sing or say while you're havening. And informational are questions like, what if? So what if? What if I lived in a state of perpetual gratitude? What if I was faith-filled? What if I believed that I was always divinely guided? What if I believed I was always divinely protected? What if I knew I was in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing? What if? What if I was confident? What if whatever idea I needed, whenever I needed it, came to me instantly and effortlessly? What if? What if I truly knew that I was lovable, loving, and loved? What if I knew? I'd like to tell your guests that they can go on havening.org. Transformational Havening is my website, but havening.org is the keep havening. Keep
I'm
havening.
doing it.
Oh, I didn't see that. So the website is havening.org, and there's lots of YouTube videos. There's one by a guy named O'Brien, and that explains it in depth. And then Kate Truitt, Truitt, but just plug in Havening into YouTube, and you can get short videos or you can get longer videos. But in the meantime, you should be noticing. How do you feel, Brock? How do you feel?
Well, I feel like I want this show to hurry up and be over so I can go sit down and lay down in bed now.
So you're relaxed, is what you're saying.
I'm feeling very relaxed and tingly.
Yeah, well, all those delta waves and the serotonin coming out is really making a difference. So affirmational havening and informational havening, I use those a lot. I love affirmational havening. And again, the benefits are cumulative. The more you haven, the more it affects you. The more you change the brain chemistry, and the more you change the brain chemistry, the more you change your responses. You are less prone to react to the circumstances of life. You're more able to respond in a powerful, thoughtful, responsible, peaceful manner.
Mm-hmm. And what a wonderful thing to do. Instead of reacting and getting all tense and hyper and upset and red and whatever, you can still have the same conversation with someone after you've havened a little bit and know that it's just peaceful and flows. So thank you for that.
And like I said, you can haven anywhere. Like you can rub your hands together. No one even knows you're doing it. You just gently rub them together. So it's wonderful. I didn't mention the word haven means a place of safety and comfort. So you're really supporting yourself in that experience of being and feeling peaceful, safe, and calm.
Well, thank you for this. Peter, I'm going to speak to Peter real quick. Did that resonate with you, Peter? The havening?
Definitely does.
I saw you doing it.
Yeah, as Brock knows, I had to stop because I have to watch what's going on behind the
I know.
Oh, okay.
But I used to regularly get acupuncture. And so some of the things that you talked about with the motion going downward was an important thing that my acupuncturist would talk about in terms of directing energy out your feet, like negative energy and things like that. You want to. The same thing with the third eye. My favorite spot is the little needle in the third eye. It's just so dreamy. I'm wondering, you had mentioned searching on YouTube. I find that if I search for, I think it's AMSR videos or ASMR. Are you familiar with those videos?
No.
It's many people, when they hear certain kinds of sounds, get the tingling feeling that Brock was explaining he gets when he does this. And it's almost like people who have the ability to taste colors or associate, one sense is activated by something that is a sound activates a feeling, or a sight activates a sense of color or something. It's like that, these noises. I wish I could probably look real quick.
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm not familiar with that.
ASMR meaning.
Brock, are you still havening?
I am, with my hands.
Okay.
Yes, it is ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, a term used to describe a tingling, static-like, or goosebump sensation in response to specific triggering audio or visual stimuli.
Okay.
Wow. Very similar,
what that does is I find myself, I was connected with that to help me sleep. And I find that I am so open and receptive to positivity, to suggestions, to emotional release when I listen to the ASMR noises. There's certain noises for me. And I remember even as far back as a little boy, if someone was sketching for me, they'd like be drawing me a little picture, and the sound of the pencil tip on the paper and them saying, now I'm going to draw the head and put in the eyes, I would almost be like high, frankly, and just want to fall asleep right there. And it was just as I got older, I discovered a very opening sensation with it, not just like soothing, but I could see that more than just being soothed was happening.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
And the other thing, go ahead.
And so if you look on, there's a lady named Tam, T-A-M, on YouTube, and she explains the chemistry and the AMPA receptors and why it actually works in the brain to make this shift. And that's what's so remarkable. I love the brain chemistry. I actually took a second training to study that more because it's terrific to know that, how the brain works.
Well, excuse me, and this is something Brock will know. I am one of those people. I was never raised very religious, and so I'm not religious, but I'm open to spirituality, things like that. And what I found interesting about New Thought and hearing about unity and things like that, as I was getting to know Brock, was that religious science, all these things, they allow for science to get into our spiritual philosophies.
Well,
it allows
religious science,
literature, philosophy, all these things that, I would say that certain very dogmatic religions are like, no, we need a restraining order from science. We need to stay away from philosophers because they steer us wrong. And so this havening is just fascinating to me because as a person who often finds himself a little more skeptical, as soon as I hear and understand that there are very clear scientific ways to explain what's going on, I'm like, I'm all on board then. That's all I need to hear to give it a fair shake. And then the last thing, which is a little off topic that I wanted to add, was I noticed as you were talking early on about forgiveness and some of the other earlier things that you were talking about, and grief, that I am learning more and more. For example, I thought of Byron Katie's Loving What Is, and it sounded like what you were talking about with releasing how I wish someone had been another way and it's different, that thing with forgiveness. That sounds to me very much about the lessons I get when I hear Byron Katie speak. Is is it really true? Is it me? Is this really the way it is? And why do I expect some, things like that, these kind of questions. And I'm loving that.
Let me just interrupt real quick. So for the viewer, they can look up Byron Katie. It's called The Work.
The Work. Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, and I love as I work with Brock on these on Spiritual Toolkit episodes, how we're getting people from different points of view and with different backgrounds, but we're really threading the same needle from different directions.
Wonderful.
And I think what makes it fascinating or so exciting to me is that I think for myself, I can only speak for myself, that oftentimes certain concepts I'm sorry, I just can't get a handle on it. I just can't get a grip on it. I can't find an access point that makes me understand or visualize it. Algebra is the same way. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't get it. But as we do this, it seems like every perspective creates another opportunity for people to find an access point, a handle that makes them go, oh, I get it now. And
good point. Well,
yeah.
And I just remembered her name is Tam Johnson.
Johnson.
Yeah, on T-A-M Johnson on YouTube. She explains, and that would really resonate with you, Peter, that you like the science behind it. She explains it. And Doug O'Brien also has a really good video on it as well to explain it. And they're having havening.org. You can see there's going to be a international conference next June on Long Island, in Roslyn on Long Island. Everyone's welcome.
Interesting.
All right. So thank you, Peter, for your input with that.
Oh,
And bringing
can I
up a
say one more
different
thing?
part.
It just occurred to
Hurry
me.
up.
I will. Is your work on grief, and I don't know if Brock has shared with you that I board and care for dogs for a living, and you may have even heard some dogs barking in the background over this hour. And this notion of grieving for the loss of a pet is so significant. And I've been doing some research on it. In certain circles, I've heard it labeled disenfranchised grief.
Yep. That's
Which-
one of the clinical terms they use. Correct.
Yeah, that and it can apply to if you lose a job that you love, or
Graduating high school, graduating college, moving.
neighbors move away. Yeah.
So many disenfranchised groups. Yep.
And the absolute need, I think it's fantastic. And a dog that I loved very, very much died just last weekend. And his owners, who are very tech savvy, they live in Texas now, are doing a bonfire in the dog's honor this Sunday. They're Zooming it because they've moved around a lot. And I am sharing with all of the dog professionals I know about this, because I'm like, everyone who loses a pet comes to us, the walkers or the boarders, and asks for help, and it's sort of a shoulder to cry on. And I really want the community I work in for animal care to really understand how important it is to validate that disenfranchised grief.
Encourage then, sorry to interrupt, I encourage you, contact Emerson, Dr. John Karn, and he can lead you in the direction, and you could become an animal chaplain. It's a beautiful.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We got emersoninstitute.edu. Contact Dr. John Karn, and he will talk to you more about that.
And you can talk to me as well, because I am an animal chaplain from Emerson.
I didn't know that. I forgot.
Yeah.
I did. I forgot that. Yeah.
Dr. Angelo.
Yeah.
Dr. Angelo put that through. Now, y'all listen. We have, the three of us have a lot to talk about. We could probably talk the rest of the night, but we only have 8 more minutes left on the show.
Okay.
So I want to get into, and Peter, thank you for that input, but I want to talk something about you personally, in the sense of something that you love to do that I know about you, and I love watching your videos and stuff on Facebook. So I know you love boating. Y'all, she is the first woman I have ever known or seen driving a boat and doing all these things that she does. And it just amazes me. And she puts it up on Facebook and things of that nature. So I love seeing it. But tell us about your boating experience, your passion for boating, how you got into that, and tell us about all of that.
I was brought up on the water. So, and I can literally remember being 2-3 years old, and I was always so exuberant and going over the side of the boat. Oh, Daddy, look, Daddy. And I would plop in the water. And I'm telling you, my dad would pick me up, grab me before I actually bounced up again. And take me up and wrap me in the truck, wrap me in a blanket in the truck with my brother, who used to regale me with stories how I was lucky the sharks didn't eat my toes. And so I was brought up, and back in the day, you could be a teenager and take a pretty big boat out by yourself. And so it was just something I always loved. And then I guess 6 years ago, I bought my first boat from my brother. I always used his boat or my father's boat, and I got my own boat and just enjoyed it. I became a vessel safety examiner, and it's non-governmental. What you do is, on behalf of the Coast Guard, is you check a boat for safeties. And I did it. I believe in boat safety, but I did it so I could get on all these boats and check them out, because I love boats. And so now I have a power boat. It's called an Albin, which is a terrific boat. It's a diesel power boat, and it's 28 feet long, and it's perfect for me. I also happen to be the rear commodore of the Greater Huntington Boating Council, and I am the first woman member of Harbor Boating Club, where I go boating. So I'm pretty much knee deep in the boating area in the vicinity, and I've done a lot. Was that a difficult
thing? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Was that a difficult thing to be the only woman?
Well, what was difficult about it is when I told my brother I wanted to do it, because the boating's very expensive. If you like to, if you're a lady and like shoes and shopping and lipstick and clothes, voting is not for you because you need to spend $8 on voting. The acronym is Break Out Another 1,000, BOAT. And so, yeah, it's an expensive but a very exciting hobby. And I'm sorry, I forgot your question. I got myself all tracked there thinking about that.
I'm just talking about the voting.
Yeah. What it was is, what was difficult was I told my brother I wanted to join, and I knew I'd be the only woman member. And when I got there, I walked in and they were cursing up a storm. And I don't curse because I'm afraid that if I curse, that, I'd be doing a funeral service one day and say, that son of a gun, blah, blah, so I don't curse. They were cursing up and down like you can't. My ears were like, ah. So I left. And as I'm leaving, my brother comes in. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I don't need to do this. I'm down the road at another club. I'm fine. I said, you wanted to do this. You're going to do this. And he marched me in there. And they asked me questions about my boating skills and my ability. And an opportunity came up to join the club. Wow. And it's a working club. So I have to do guard duty and certain other things you have to do. But yeah, I'm really big in the boating. And I love, nothing prettier to me than look out the back of a boat and see how the waves go foaming up.
Well, maybe sometime if I ever get up that way, we can go boating. You can take me out.
I have a guest room, Brock. You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Dr. Janine.
Yes.
We're almost about out of time. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share at all?
Yes, I think it's critically important every single day to set your mind right. Just as you eat food and brush your teeth and you exercise, you got to set your mind right and remind yourself that within you is the amazing presence and power of the creator of all that is. Every day, remember that you are one with this power. Affirm, I am. That's the name of God within you. I am divinely guided in all I think, say, and do. I am. Critically important every day. And if you do that, within days, your life will change. As your consciousness changes, your life experience changes.
It's true. Thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful last thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you come back again, maybe in several months, and let's go deeper?
Sure. I'm in.
Awesome. I'll call you about that. So, my friends, you can check out Dr. Janine at transformationalhavening.org. Transformationalhavening, HAVENING.org.
And Brock,
yes.
Yeah, I want to tell you, because I know you're about to say this, on the youarethelight.org website, there's a good article in there that I wrote on dealing with death when it first happens. Youarethelight.org, and there's a like a link. Dealing with death when it first happens is an article there.
I will actually go there. Y'all, it's youarethelight.org for funerals and memorials. And then lastly, for her wedding services, she is at ilovetodoweddings.com. ilovetodoweddings.com. I
have married over 1,000 couples on Long Island over the past 35 years.
Well, that's a huge part of your ministry then.
Well, it has been for over 35 years, but my ministry now is going to be the havening and spiritual principles combined. That's really what's going to help people with grieving. It's going to help them with releasing the past and moving forward in life with ease and peace and joy.
Thank you, Janine. You've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much. So we've come to the end of our show, everybody. So Dr. Janine, I'm grateful for your participation in sharing such interesting, thoughtful, and helpful and fun information. Thank you to all of our viewers and subscribers. And thank you to Peter Millar, our producer. And Peter, thanks for speaking up today. And a shout out to Robert Brzezinski, the founder of New Thought Media Network. And join us next week, y'all, which is Thanksgiving. So if you're not eating, join us. And where I personally will be the guest and sharing about my life and my path that has led me to this show and why I believe this show is vital and the whole New Thought Media Network period is vital. So drop in next week at 3:00 and we'll just have a conversation, me and you. So at any rate, and check out all the other great shows on New Thought Media Network at ntmedia.org. And with that said, Janine, thank you. Peter, thank you.
Thank you, Brock.
Blessings to my friends.
Thank you.
Love you. All right.